Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation.
I need a break from this game. It has been costing me my sanity, my keyboard, and if I'm not careful, it might cost me my friends as I am too busy committing vehicular manslaughter instead of spending time with them. I should play a relaxing game, which is why I picked this game. Just look at the guy. Doesn't that just scream relax to you? It has been a couple of weeks, and now I can say with full confidence that this game is not relaxing. Hollow Knight. You might have heard about it, and if not, then I feel very sorry for you. It was a Metroidvania released back in 2017, back when CD Projekt Red had a flawless reputation, and I wasn't yet drinking because of crippling student debt. The game was made by 3 Australians working from their garage, 1 coder, 1 artist, and 1 guy that had to fight off the Australian wildlife. The game takes place in Hallownest, a dangerous bug-infested place which is located in Queensland, Australia, which explains all the messed up creatures that roam the area. You play as this little insect dude that has a sword and a dream.
I have a dream! What?
That dream being to explore the ruins of a lost kingdom and fight the giant mud god because he is turning the area into an ugly shade of orange. In the process of exploring this place, we will of course steal everything valuable that is not nailed down. And if anyone threatens to call the authorities, or tries to tell you that stealing and the aggravated assault that might follow is unethical, just remember that we are not some hippies that want to experience the culture of these lands and see the sights. We are more like 16th century Spanish conquistadors that are here to take all the gold and give the natives smallpox. Our life might be cut short by those natives, but it will be filled with wealth. Unfortunately, the rivers of Queensland have infected these ruins, which have mutated the bugs into man-made horrors beyond your comprehension. Just yours though, I can comprehend them just fine. I think it might have to do with the 2 gallons of swamp water that I've been drinking. I will not elaborate as to why I do this, just know that I can currently see you behind your screen. Now you might be looking at the footage and think, wow, this is truly a varied and cool looking world, but you might also wonder what has happened to this place before we came here, and what exactly motivates us to kill the giant god moth, as the place is more deserted than Detroit and almost as violent. This takes us to the story, which sometimes can be as incomprehensible as the Glaswegian accent.
There's no going there, and happy eyes. You understand?
I still don't understand why this guy kicked all his babies into this pit, why this guy has to show up with an entire circus, and why this thing is considered a MILF. But I will try to explain.
In the beginning,
In the beginning, there were several tribes located in Hallownest. The mushrooms, the mantises, the bees, the moths, the bugs, and those cunts living down in Deep Nest. And then one day this big moth called the Radiance showed up in the dreams of moths, and they liked it. This is probably due to the fact that moths are attracted to light, and the Radiance is as bright as my future would be were I not an alcoholic. They started to worship this Radiance, and the Radiance was cool with it. That was until this small bug showed up called the Pale King, and he wanted to build his empire in Hallownest. He also tried to make the people of Hallownest worship him. This had mixed results. The mantises and shrooms were not interested, but respected his territorial claims. The moths and the bugs loved him and started to worship him instead of the Radiance. And the bastards in Deepnet blew up his railroad, because of course they would. And so the Radiance was forgotten, never to be a problem again for this kingdom.
So let me be clear.
Which was now flourishing under the guidance of the king and his wife. That is until one moth forgot to take his dementia pills and remembered the Radiance. This gave the Radiance some strength back, which she used to infect the dreams of anyone she could get her hands on, turning them into mindless puppets. The king was not happy about his subjects becoming mindless puppets, as he could not collect taxes from someone that would most likely blow up the tax collector. Although I can hardly blame them for trying to blow up the tax collector. He and his wife thought for all of 2 seconds on how to fix this issue until they realized that under their kingdom there was this big hole with very funky black goop inside. So they decided to create a bunch of children, or vessels as they called them, and fill said vessels with black goop in the hope that it would help them against the Radiance. Now, this sounds like something that would get child services called on you, but being the king, he could just do as he pleased. Now, being the responsible parent that he was, After creating the children, he made them play a game of Wipeout, and the winner got to seal away the radiance as the black goop made them able to lock him up using their body. The rest of the children that survived the Wipeout game were locked into the abyss. However, the king did not properly check for another way out, which is how you and some of your other siblings escaped. Now, normally this would be the end of the story, but it turns out that a game of Wipeout might not be the best way to find the most skilled vessel for the job, and at the start of the game, the radiance is slowly leaking out of the vessel, and it is up to us to take up the sword and
Do something about it.
what exactly happened between us leaving the abyss and us returning to the kingdom is a mystery, but we can speculate. Just know that we were one of the lucky ones, as you will soon see that not all of your siblings were as lucky with their escape. Nevertheless, it is now our duty to explore the kingdom and find a way to imprison the Radiance once again. Or, if we search the deepest parts of Hallownest well enough, maybe we might be able to kill it. Our sword and willpower will get us far in this journey, but seeing it is currently a rusty piece of shit, we will need more tools and better weapons to reach the deepest parts of this cavern. And since we do not have insect spray or a way to call an Uber to travel to said places, we have to make do with what we start with and what we can find. We start out with a sword and the ability to heal. How do we heal, you might ask? That's quite simple. We absorb the souls of recently murdered bugs and use the anguish from them being denied an afterlife to fuel our life. An old lady even teaches us how to use the souls as a weapon, so that we can use the souls of bugs to kill other bugs, thus repeating the cycle of collecting souls to kill bugs and thus collect more souls. And as someone that actively studies the Geneva Conventions for personal reasons, I deem this 100% legal, and any judge that disagrees is just trying to bring down a real one. But in all seriousness, the soul magic is really useful, as it basically makes us able to shoot whatever we want on the screen and also opens many different places in the map. We can also find charms which we can equip to become stronger. These can range from more damage or more health to summoning spiders to do your bidding. There are two opposing schools of thought when it comes to combat. Those that rely on magic and people that rely on their sword. Magic users will cite that magic can technically do more damage at less of a risk, making it the ultimate way to play. Sword enjoyers will however cite that, well, it's fun as fuck to hit people with a sword. My advice? Do whatever you like, as both styles of play are completely viable. You will not get locked out of one style just because you like the other. You will need to master at least one of these styles as you head deeper into Hallownest, as things might not be as innocent as it looked like at first glance. Why do I think this? Well, I can count the amount of people that do not actively want to murder you on my fingers. Let me be clear, this game can be a little difficult, but it mostly depends on how much you want to torture yourself. From the very beginning you can choose between normal mode and Steel Soul mode. There's only one tiny difference. If you die in Steel Soul mode, you do not respawn and you can no longer play on that save file. If you are playing the game for the first time, please do not play Steel Soul mode. The suicide rates are already high enough. Besides that, the bosses, enemies and environment also get more difficult as the game progresses. You need only to look at the boss fights to see the increase in difficulty. This is the first boss, easy attack patterns and deals only 1 damage, a very good boss to teach the player the mechanics of the game. This is a mid-game boss. You have to show a little bit more skill and use all of your abilities to the fullest, but it is still manageable. This is just horseshit. Unless you spend more time playing than sleeping and you pump yourself full of PEDs, this shit is almost impossible. The environment also gets harder along with the enemies in them. The starting area has simple enemies who don't even really recognize you as a threat. Meanwhile, late game areas have more spikes than a punk concert and are filled with enemies that will shoot, stab, punch, kick and throw all they have at you.
Why you bully me? You fucking bitch, why you bully me? Everyone asking.
Speaking of environments and their inhabitants, let's talk about them. A couple minutes ago I mentioned several races that were there during the Pale King's reign, and most of them are still around, except for the Moths, who are down to one mod who sits at the graveyard and is so high that she can enter your dreams. The bugmen that did not go insane from the radiance set up in Dirtmouth. This village acts as the main hub of the game, where you can spend your money on upgrades and sit on a bench while contemplating the 4-digit amount of murders that you just committed. Dirtmouth is actually a really nice place, as it is the only place where nothing is trying to actively murder you. The only people there are the people that have fled the City of Tears, as the city has become uninhabitable due to the Radiance's infection. So, where have the others gone? The mushroom people have set up shop in the fungal wastes and don't really do much, but then again, you cannot expect much from a group of walking shiitakes. The bees have barricaded themselves under the edge of the kingdom to escape the Radiance. They are safe for the foreseeable future, but defenseless should anyone find them and try to take their riches. The mantises barricaded themselves in with the mushrooms in the fungal wastes, protecting themselves from the Radiance, one of their previous leaders who went insane, and from Deep Nest, because despite my prayers, those fuckers are still around.
No! God, please, no! 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 No!
Now, you might be asking why I hold such a big grudge against Deep Nest, and if you are wondering that, then you must not have played Hollow Knight, as for the average player, mentioning Deep Nest is like lighting fireworks next to your Vietnam veteran grandpa. It does not bring out happy memories. Deep Nest is one of the harder parts of the map, which you can access after defeating the leaders of the mantises. Once you enter, you realize why the leaders did not want anything getting in, or especially out of Deep Nest. The entire area is dark, monsters come out of the ground, out of the walls, or even out of other monsters. The ground itself is unstable and filled with spikes, and you cannot even sit on a bench without getting kidnapped. Despite all of my complaints, I do not mind how Deep Nest looks. In fact, I think the place looks great, just like the entire map. Hollow Nest is a very varied place. You have small villages, green forests, a city, a mine filled with laser traps, and you can actually visit the place where Dad old Dearest dumped all of his babies. It is a very colorful place, which does truly feel alive. You can almost always tell which part of the map you are in by looking at the background. I also really like and appreciate the style of the game. Seeing as my PC is getting up there in age, I am happy to report that I do not need a fire extinguisher next to my PC to make sure my PC does not overheat and burn down my house. I've been talking for quite a while now, and there is still so much more I could talk about. The Colosseum, where you can fight for the glory of being a fool, how you can enter the dream world, the Pantheon, where you can revisit the bosses and fight their harder versions, the circus that comes to town, and the multiple endings that you can get. But I want you guys to experience that fun for yourself. There is, however, one more thing I would like to mention. The soundtrack is amazing. I rate this game at 10 out of 10. It really makes you feel like a Hollow Knight. In conclusion, it gets worse every day. Remember to like and subscribe.